Story 1, DoorDash Order in the Mist. You are watching Channel Whispers Midnighty. If you like creepy stories in the middle of the night, remember subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell and leave a like so that I have more motivation to bring more new stories. And today I will tell you an experience that until now the main character is still haunted. I never thought I would one day be delivering food at night. But after losing my job and needing some quick cash, I signed up for DoorDash. I told myself, just drive, deliver food, get tips, simple. That night was the first time I tried. The time was almost 11 p.m. The city was covered in a thick layer of fog. The cold, damp air penetrated to the skin. The phone vibrated. An order appeared. What caught my attention was, tip. $30 for a small order. So unusual. But because it was unusual, I was all the more attracted. Probably rich or someone in dire need. I click accept order. I drove through the streets. The farther I went, the fewer the streetlights. The map took me away from the city center into the suburbs where houses were scattered in a white mist. Finally, the GPS stopped in front of a lone house. It was old, with patchy walls and a heavy tiled roof. It was deserted, with no one around, just the sound of insects and the occasional dog howling in the distance. I hesitantly turned off the engine. Just deliver and go. A fat tip is waiting, I reassured myself. As I stepped onto the porch, I noticed that the front door was only slightly open. A cold breeze blew in, carrying with it a strong, musty smell. I was about to knock when a voice called out from the darkness. Come in. Put the box on the table. I was stunned. The box was placed inside the house? Customers usually come out to receive it. No one forces the shipper to come in. I hesitated. Can I leave it on the porch? The voice spoke again, flat and empty. Come in. Don't worry. In that moment, my mind was in a fierce battle. If I left, I would lose the job and get a bad review. But if I went in, a feeling of unease welled up. Finally, greed won. I gently pushed the door open and entered. The house was dark, with only a yellow light from a table lamp at the end of the hallway. The sound of a piano was faintly playing somewhere, a sad and gloomy song as if it were not from this world. I put the food box on the wooden table. My hands were shaking because there was something wrong in the air. I spoke up. I left my things here. No one answered. Only the piano music echoed. I turned and walked out. But at that moment, I felt it. Eyes. Someone was staring from the darkness. I turned. At the end of the hallway in the darkness there was a figure, a tall, thin man wearing a wrinkled white shirt. His face was dim, but his eyes were unusually bright, as if emitting a pale light. He didn't move, just stood there looking. My whole body got goosebumps. I swallowed hard. I have to go. No answer. Only the piano music grew louder, more urgent. I hurried to the door, but when my hand touched the doorknob, it didn't budge. The door was locked from the outside. My heart clenched. I turned and pounded, but to no avail. Behind me, footsteps echoed slowly, pounding on the rotten wooden floor. Am I trapped? I turned. The man was approaching. His face was clearly visible under the yellow light. Gaunt, his skin as pale as a corpse, his lips purple. But the most horrifying thing was his eyes. White, pupilless. He whispered hoarsely, "Stay. I'm lonely." I frantically pounded on the door, then remembered. The window. I rushed into the living room next door, found an old window frame. I pushed with all my might. Luckily, it swung open. The night breeze rushed in. I climbed out and fell onto the wet grass. Behind me, the piano music rang out shrilly like a scream. I ran to the car, not daring to look back. As I stepped on the gas, I looked in the rearview mirror. The door of the house was closed. There was no one in sight. Just the fog that swallowed everything. That night, I canceled all my remaining orders. I went home and sat there panting for hours, trying to make sense of what had happened. But the more I thought about it, the more scared I became. Maybe he was just a freak, a psychopath, but those eyes, those white eyes were not human at all. And that piano music, it keeps ringing in my head, even now. Since then, I never dare to take late-night orders again. What do you think? Was the man in that house just a sick person or some other entity that does not belong to this world? If you fall into that situation, would you dare enter a dark house to deliver food? Leave a comment below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Story 2. First shift at the motel. Have you ever worked the night shift? While the rest of the world sleeps, you are left to deal with darkness, strange sounds, and sometimes unusual visitors. If you like creepy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell and leave a like. Because right now I'm going to tell you about a guy's first and most terrifying experience when he took the night shift at a small motel. I lost my job after a round of layoffs. My savings were running low. In desperation, I found what seemed like an easy job, working as a night receptionist at a motel. The boss said, "No problem. Just sit at the counter, give the keys to the guests, take down the information. It's usually quiet at night here." I nodded. The pay was low, but it was better than nothing. And so, on a cold evening in late autumn, I took my first shift. The motel was nestled in the middle of a deserted road surrounded by lush trees. The neon sign flickered, the light sometimes dim, sometimes bright. In the office, there was only me and the rickety reception desk. Near midnight, I was beginning to feel sleepy when the door opened. A woman walked in. Her hair was disheveled, her coat was worn, her face was haggard and worried. She was breathing heavily and said softly, "One room, right now." I gave her the key and briefly wrote down her identity. She didn't say much, just trudged up the stairs looking like she was running away from something. Less than 10 minutes later, the door opened again. A man appeared. He was tall, wearing a long coat, his face in shadow. His voice was deep and hoarse. "Did she come here?" I froze. My heart was pounding. My intuition told me he was looking for that woman. I stammered, I don't understand what you're saying." His eyes stared at me as if trying to tear apart the lie. Finally, he nodded slightly, then turned and walked out. My whole body turned cold. I decided to check the security camera, but the screen was blurry, only showing flickering black shadows. I broke out in a sweat, feeling something unusual was looming over the entire motel. Then the landline rang. I picked it up with trembling hands. A choked female voice rang out, "Please, don't let him find me. I'm in room 3. I realized it was the woman from earlier. Before I could reply, the line went silent. I stood up and decided to go to room 3. The hallway was dark, with only a few dim yellow lights flickering as if they were about to burn out. The more I walked, the heavier my heart became. When I got to the door, I knocked softly. "I'm the receptionist. Are you okay?" There was no answer. I pressed my ear to the door, only to hear soft sobbing. Suddenly, from the end of the corridor came the sound of hurried footsteps. I turned around. The man was coming towards me, his eyes blazing, his face distorted with hatred. I panicked and backed away. He roared, "Where is she? Open the door!" I stammered, "You are not allowed up here. Leave now." But he didn't listen. He rushed forward and banged loudly on the door of room 3. At that moment, I heard a woman screaming inside. I mustered up the courage and ran downstairs to call the police. But the landline was cut off, leaving only static. I pulled out my cell phone, but the signal was so weak I couldn't make a call. When I looked up, he was standing right in front of the reception desk. He smiled, a lopsided, menacing smile. "You don't know what you're getting yourself into." With that, he left, disappearing into the darkness outside the door. A few minutes later, the police actually arrived. They had received a call from someone in the area reporting screams. I led them up to room 3. But when I opened the door, the room was empty. No one, no luggage, no trace. Only the window was wide open, the cold wind blew in, the curtains fluttered. I was stunned. The woman disappeared as if she had never existed. A policeman looked at me and said, "We know him. He was the ex-husband of a woman who had been abused. The victim died many years ago in this very room, number 3. But sometimes, people still hear the woman calling for help. I was stunned. So who was the person I met? A soul that could not be released, still haunted by her brutal husband? Or was it just a cruel joke of fate? That night I quit my job. I never returned to that motel again. But every time I passed that road, I still felt the eyes of that man following me from the darkness. And somewhere, the woman's cry for help still echoed in my ears. What do you think? The woman in room 3 was a survivor on the run, or just a wronged soul imprisoned forever? If you fall into this situation, would you dare go up that dark hallway and knock on the door? Leave a comment below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Story 3. Night shift grocery store line-keeping job. If you've ever worked the night shift, you know how it feels like the rest of the world is asleep, while you're quietly struggling between 4 walls. But sometimes darkness doesn't just bring silence. It also hides things that no one dares to face. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like to give me more motivation to continue telling these scary stories. And now, let's hear the chilling experience of a student working part-time at a 24-hour grocery store. I was a student, needing money to pay for my tuition. The job at the grocery store seemed simple: cleaning, stocking, manning the counter until morning. During the day, there were other employees, but the night shift, it was just me. The boss said, "Don't worry, there are few customers at night. Just sit and wait or arrange more lines, no problem." I nodded, thinking, a leisurely job and good money. Great. But within the first week, I realized there are things that are better left unknown. That night, the store was deserted. The only sound was the ticking of a clock on the wall and the pale fluorescent lights that illuminated the long rows of shelves. About 2 a.m. I was stacking the shelves of canned goods when I heard the doorbell jingle. I looked up. No one was there. I shivered. The glass door was transparent, no sign of guests. I reassured myself. Maybe the wind made the bell ring. But when I turned back, I realized some of the boxes I had just packed had been turned upside down, as if someone had just touched them. I started to feel wary. I walked around the store. Everything was quiet. When I got back to the counter, I saw the security camera showing a shadowy figure at the end of the aisle. My heart sank. I looked out, saw no one. But on the screen, the figure was still standing there, motionless, his back to the camera. I gathered my courage and walked towards the end of the row. When I got there, it was empty. When I turned back, I noticed a strange detail. The camera was still showing shadow right where I was standing. But with the naked eye, I couldn't see anything. I panicked and ran back to the counter, took out my phone and tried to call the boss. But the phone screen suddenly went black and turned off. I plugged it in to charge and it wouldn't turn on. At the same time, the lights in the shop flickered and then went out. The space was plunged into complete darkness. In the silence, a sound rang out, the creaking of wheels. I strained my eyes. From the shelf, a shopping cart slowly slid out, moving on its own without anyone pushing it. It rolled straight toward me, stopping right in front of the counter. Inside was a carton of milk, but it was dented and leaking. I picked it up. In the only flickering light from the sign outside, I saw the expiration date printed on it, 1998. My heart sank. This carton of milk had been there for over 20 years. Why was it here? Before I could comprehend what was happening, I heard a low murmur coming from the passages, like people whispering. I turned left, then right. No one. The whispering grew louder, repeating a single sentence over and over again, in different voices. "Give it back to us, give it back." Unable to bear it any longer, I rushed to the main door. But the glass door would not open. I pulled and banged, but it seemed locked from the outside. In the reflection of the glass door, I saw behind me dozens of figures standing crowded between the shelves. They had no faces, just dark shapes, swaying as they approached. I screamed, turning around, but the shop was empty. No one there. I shivered and crawled under the counter, closing my eyes tightly. My heart was pounding. I don't know how much time passed, but when I opened my eyes, the lights were back on. Everything was back to normal. Only the cart stood silently in front of the counter, and the carton of milk, expired 1998, disappeared. The next morning, I told my boss. He was silent for a moment, then simply said, "Don't worry, there was a fire here. Many people were trapped and couldn't escape. Maybe they're still around." He smiled faintly, but his eyes were empty. One thing I know for sure, I will never work the night shift there again. The money is not worth it, when every tick of the clock can bring ghosts back. What do you think, those figures in the grocery store? Were they just my hallucinations, or were they really the souls of the people who died in the fire? If it were you, would you dare to continue working the night shift there to earn extra income? Story 4. The new manager on the night shift. Have you ever felt someone looking at you for too long without saying anything? That silence sometimes is even scarier than screaming. And now I'm going to tell you my experience. An experience that made me quit my job after the first night. I just got a job at a 24-hour grocery store. The work is simple: cleaning, stocking shelves, helping the counter. But there's one thing that's making me uneasy. The new manager, whose name is John. He barely spoke, just stood at the end of the aisle, silently observing me. At first I thought he was just checking out the new employee, but as time went on, the silence became more and more creepy. I struggled with my thoughts. Should I quit now, or just bear it for one night and think about it later? I choose the second way. About 2 a.m. I saw John standing at the end of the aisle again, staring at me. This time, when he realized I had noticed, he started walking closer, giving a wry smile. "Hey, why don't we take a 15-minute break? It's been a long night." I agreed, but I didn't expect him to leave with me. He led me to the back of the building, where a heavy metal door opened onto a small parking lot. As we stepped out, the only car in the lot suddenly started and drove away. I thought for a moment, maybe it's John's car. But he just leaned against the wall, lit a cigarette, and didn't say a word. The atmosphere became extremely awkward. I stood there awkwardly, holding my uneaten lunchbox. I wanted to go back to the break room, but I was afraid of leaving a bad impression on the first day. In silence, I looked out at the dark trees beyond the parking lot, but I could feel John's eyes on me. The silence was heavy and suffocating. Then, the car from earlier turned around. It circled the building, then slowly stopped right in front of us. I glanced at John, hoping for some reaction, but there was none. He stood still, his face expressionless, his cold eyes staring straight at me, as if the car didn't exist. In that moment, I started thinking, is this a trap that John set? Before the car stopped, I quickly turned and ran back out the back door. I rushed to the office, where I left my bag, keys, and coat. But when I got there, everything was gone. No bag, no keys, no jacket. It was like I had never set foot in that office. I heard footsteps echoing from the hallway, more than one person. I didn't dare turn around, just ran straight ahead, out of the building, rushed to the nearby gas station and asked them to call the police. Part of me still thinks maybe I was being paranoid, overreacting. But all doubts disappeared when the police arrived. When they searched the office, my bag and jacket were there just as they had been. John denied it all. He even said no cars had stopped. And strangest of all, the security camera at the back of the building, where we were standing, was the only one that didn't record that night. So convenient, it's creepy. In the end, there was no evidence. I couldn't prove anything. But I knew one thing for sure. If I had stayed, I probably wouldn't be here to tell this story. I quit my job immediately, left town, broke my lease, and moved back in with my parents. To this day, I have no idea what John was up to or what really happened that night. Just know that the scariest things are not ghosts, but people right in front of you, looking at you as if you were just prey. What do you guys think? Is John really a dangerous guy? Or is it just a weird coincidence that I'm being misunderstood? If in that situation, do you dare follow John to the back of the building? Please leave a comment below to let me know. 4 stories, 4 experiences, but they all have one thing in common. The darkness makes everything distorted and many times more terrifying. A seemingly normal DoorDash order leads to a strange, foggy house. A first shift at the motel opens the door to a creepy secret. A boring night waiting in line at the grocery store turned into a nightmare. And finally, a silent manager on the night shift can carry greater danger than the devil. The scariest thing was that none of them knew what was going to happen until the darkness swallowed everything. So according to you, what is more frightening? The darkness, ghosts, or the eyes of the people living around us? Have you ever had a strange night shift that you still remember? Share your stories in the comments below. And if these stories make you cringe, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notification bell so as not to miss the next long nights.